A ton of NBA notes, including a breakfast with Dennis Lindsey. The Utes, how did they let these two things happen? Maybe there's an answer. And the NFL, do I have it backwards? It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. Arena approved in Seattle. Boom, 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 boom. Shh. Couldn't be more fired up for all the people in Seattle who've gone through the years of pain without a team. Just couldn't be more excited for. Boom, 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 boom. Shh. Can't wait to go back and call a game in Seattle. Congratulations to any of you, my friends that are out there that are Seattle people that have gone through with you without the team and the pain and the losing of the franchise to get this thing done. To Chris Hansen, I think Wally Walker behind the scenes has been very important. The people in Seattle, that's a neat day. A lot of stuff. Gosh, I'm loaded with things today. Great. Thanks for taking the time. I'll tell you what. I hope it comes across to all of you out there that are loyal enough to be listening on this on a September 11th, a very important day, obviously, in our history. I have great appreciation for you. So thank you. By the way, I hope everyone takes a moment today. I'm sure you will. Just kind of, we really have to try to make sure we never forget. I really kind of think two things, not to get too political here. We need to make sure we never forget who we were on September 10th of 2001, and what we believed in, who we were, what was important to us. Because I think if I have a personal comment to what I think has gone most disturbingly wrong since that day, is that we lost that. We became somewhat xenophobic, and we, I think, lost some of our reminders of who we were and what we believed in and our common threads and just a bunch of stuff. Fear does that. The other thing, though, is I think I really feel like we all should almost take a moment and watch that again. Like, we can't forget that happened. So those are my two kind of deep political thoughts. I have note sheet right here. If you're watching on YouTube, there's my note sheet. Doesn't say anything about that. That's the wacky thing about this podcast every morning. Today I'm recording it at 8:20, so I'm a little fresher, but sometimes it just goes in a different direction. I had breakfast with Dennis Lindsey yesterday. We hit the Park Cafe. Best French toast in town. It was an off-the-record conversation. The only on-the-record part of the conversation was the concept of whether or not players improve when they change teammates and system in their offensive efficiency, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast together. And there are cases, he pointed out some times where teams might recognize a flaw in a player in the way they either release their jumper or the way they're using their body or some things like that other teams might not pick up. And so that's where you get some change in an individual's offensive efficiency or effectiveness, but that fundamentally you do not get a big change in a player just because he switched systems or teammates. So that's kind of what I've been preaching this whole time. That anyone who's telling you, well, we'll get this guy and he'll be better with us, really doesn't happen. Sometimes it doesn't, but it really, really doesn't happen. So anyway, the breakfast with Dennis was really just get to know him. Fundamentally, in a lot of ways, I work for him. So who's my new boss? It's not quite that. It's not really like that, but probably somewhere on the tree of Jazz personnel, it probably is. Pretty far removed. But true. And I just came away super impressed. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you if I wasn't impressed because of what I just told you, but I probably could tell you nothing. And I will tell you, I was really impressed. A very good guy, very thoughtful, very interesting, and with a little something to him. There was a moment in the breakfast where I kind of thought to myself, wow, if this guy suddenly told me tomorrow, I want you to come work for me, I probably would come close to dropping everything I have and go do whatever he wanted me to do. I got to know Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, when I was in Seattle, and I had that with him, and I almost did it. It almost ruined my career, actually. But he just was so charismatic, and that's in a big way. I mean, Howard Schultz just owns the room when he walks in. Dennis is is much more in a subtle way that you're almost wowed by his thoughtfulness. You're wowed by the level that he's going into detail on things, the amount he's researched what he's doing, the realization that this guy is, at least in my opinion yesterday when I was talking to him, that he's really just, he's on the forefront and you want to be a part of it. I'd want to work for him. It was very interesting. And I don't want to break, I could ruin our relationship entirely by breaking the confidence. And frankly, it's not like he told me a whole lot of stuff. Like, I don't know suddenly the plan. And I actually would share with you, that was kind of his comment. Like, he asked me at one point, what's the biggest question you're getting from fans? And I said, future of the point guard in Millsap Jefferson. He goes, okay, great. They're on it. Like, and though, he didn't say this, but basically to some extent, that's their questions too. The beauty in what the Jazz have done here, by the way, is that they can play this thing out. Most teams are not able to make decisions with a full deck of information. The Jazz can play out the season and see how much Favors develops, see how much Burks develops, see how much Hayward develops, see where Cantor develops, see how Paul's holding up, see if Jefferson gets better. They have another year to make a bunch of the decisions that they need to make, and there's, as fans, we're very much like, okay, let's go, what are we going to do? But to some extent, maybe the whole point here is that they don't have to do that they don't have to make that change of right now. There's no need, there's nothing positive about making decisions earlier than you have all the data in and all the information you can accumulate than making it when you're most knowledgeable. And the way O'Connor has structured this, which, Dennis was just blown away at how impressive that is that they can wait. So anyway, I don't want to, I don't want to get into too much. I was just very impressed by who he was and his approach. I'm trying to figure out how I can. Just when he was talking about great organizations, he was talking about way things done. It wasn't just him talking about the Spurs. Like, it wasn't just him talking about his Rockets. He went to other companies, other businesses, other sports. It just was very, very interesting. So I don't want to break that confidence of that meeting, but I wanted to get to know him. I thought I'd share with you who's running this place. I would say I came away very, very impressed. I'd heard only great things, but I'd never spent any time with him. And this guy's he's looking to win. There's no question in every minute detail possible to win. Everything on this organization has to be together individually on what it takes for the Jazz to be better as a basketball team. And it's cool. It's really neat. And it was always like that with Kevin. But I knew Kevin, so this is cool. Interesting quote from Deron Williams. He's going to be on the new NBA Baller Beats video game and was asked if he thought he'd get that opportunity if he was still playing in Utah. He said probably not. There's not a lot of national opportunities in Utah. There's definitely some local stuff, some regional stuff, but not much national stuff. So 2 comments to that. One, he's not ripping. Don't go kill him for it. But it's just, that's where Darren's mind was. So it's just kind of a subtle thing where I think it just tells you once again how right Kevin O'Connor was with that decision. I don't think anyone has any doubt on that, but it was just worthwhile. And then I'm not sure it's entirely true. I mean, I think there are some areas where as a small market, there's definitely some things that are restrictive to what you can do. But if you're good enough in this league, in this day and age, I think you get recognized. Gordon Hayward and Derek Favors got invited to the elite team. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook are winning and getting plenty of pub in Oklahoma City. I'm not sure that I buy the concept there from Deron on this. All right, I've got a ton of NBA notes. I want to get to some college football stuff. It's funny, I never intended, just to share with you, I never intended for this to ever have much of any college football stuff, maybe some NFL stuff because I'm such a big NFL fan, just sharing my thoughts. But frankly, the demand from you guys is, hey, keep Jazz 1, keep NBA 2, but can you please include some of your thoughts? I'm reluctant to do that in this sense. The guys, Scotty G and Spence and Gordon, DJ and PK, Jake, those guys are in it. And they probably know stuff I don't know at this point because I'm not following it anything other than, frankly, listening to them and just watching. So when I'm talking about these things, there's a great columnist out of out of Seattle named Greg Johns who wrote for a smaller paper. He now, I think, writes for MLB.com. And I always was wowed by how he could come in and see the big picture. We'd be all into the minutia of whether the the pulling guard was pulling correctly, and he'd come into the Seahawk camp and write the story that everyone actually really wanted to know. But that we were so in deep that we were missing it. So I'm hoping that if I'm talking to you that, but I'm not sure that I can suffice any real detailed stuff. I got asked to write something about a breakdown on the rivalry match between BYU and Utah, and I was like, I'm just not sure that I'm well enough versed for that. So just be a little, I kind of want to put that disclaimer. Here's a few NBA notes that are out there that I think are really interesting. SLC Dunk and I have had this kind of ongoing back and forth stuff. I mean, just I share something here, they share it there. It's been really fun. I think it was all the Amar or all the Amir did a neat post on whether or not Morris Allman was a disappointment or not, because I had said I thought Chris Morris was, and my comment was that kind of frankly that 25th pick doesn't pan out very often. He used some 82 games, numbers.com. I have 51% of those picks really never make your rotation with any regularity, and Morris Allman didn't. The other angle on Morris Allman, just to add on that, is traditionally high-scoring four-year seniors have a tough time adjusting into the NBA because they were their team. That's the case of Morris. That's the case of Wesley Johnson. It might be the case of Jimmer. Four-year seniors who were used a huge amount of possessions on their teams have a hard time. Reggie Jackson, I think, is going to fit into that model at Oklahoma City. So that's a little bit more. I love the fact that you guys are listening to this as intently enough that you're pulling my comments, and then I get nervous about it when I make the comment that players like that don't usually make it, and then you have to I didn't do enough work there, so you have to figure out what I meant by that, so I'm trying to give a little more. Interesting talk of Bill Simmons and Stan Van Gundy hosting ESPN's NBA coverage this year on television. Anything with Stan Van Gundy I'm up for, and Bill Simmons obviously is a huge NBA guy. I thought that would be interesting. Durant and LeBron are working out together again. They did that last year. They did it Hell Week. Some people kind of cringe at the idea of these guys battling the NBA Finals, and then they go work out against each other. Who else are they going to work out against? I don't think that's a big problem. Interesting story out of Miami that Dwayne Wade's really changed the way he's catching the ball and releasing his mid-range jumper because he lost his mid-range jumper last year. That's a key to his game, is that middle game. And except for the fact it's not true. The whole article is a neat article about how he's catching the ball differently and his release and this and that and all these problems. It's not true. I went and looked at hoop data. For the last 3 years, from 16 to 23 feet, he's shot 36, 37, 37%. League average on that is, I think, about that. From 10 to 15 feet, the last 3 years, he shot 34, 39, and 44%. So since LeBron has come, his 10 to 15-footer has gone way up. He's actually gotten better. Where he's struggling is between 3 and 9 feet last year. His rim numbers are incredible. He shot 67, 66, 66, 67, 67, 66% at the rim over the last 6 years. He's the exact same. And he didn't make his threes last year, but he's never been a good three-point shooter, and he never will be a good three-point shooter. But I find it fascinating that there's this whole article written, this whole discussion written about Dwayne Wade and his mid-range game, and it's fundamentally not true. Interesting other note: Lakers have formed their new staff. They're going to try. They're bringing in Eddie Jordan. Eddie Jordan runs the Princeton offense, so it sounds like they're going to make a third change to what kind of offense they run with Dwight Howard, Steve Nash. It's very interesting they'd run that. A lot of us thought we'd see a lot of pick and roll between Nash and Howard, but then what does Kobe and Gasol do? They have so many skills that maybe they feel that's going to work. The other one that's very interesting is their assistant coach, and this is from Forum Blue and Gold, a great blog. Is Steve Clifford. Who's Steve Clifford? Steve Clifford has spent better part of the last 12 seasons with Van Gundy along with Tom Thibodeau. And the past 5 years with Stan Van Gundy with the Magic, so using Dwight Howard. That sounds to me like a great hire. Tom Thibodeau seems to have a magic secret on how you play defense in this league, and that to me is an interesting hire by the Lakers. So keep an eye on that. All right, quick thoughts on I'm at 14 minutes again. I'm trying to get this thing down to 15 for you. Quick thoughts on Utah. There's just two things I'm not sure that I understand. I shared yesterday my thought on that they knew Jordan Wynn wasn't going to make it, and at least from people I talked to, and so they consciously and willingly, to some extent, have decided to go into this game knowing that there was a real chance that John Hayes was their quarterback again. I don't know what they should have done otherwise. And they were able to win some games with John Hayes, but that, to me, I don't know. I don't know the other answer. The other one that stunned me watching them play Utah State is I'm really, truly not sure I have seen much worse right tackle play than I saw in that game. They've changed their left tackle. Sam Brenner has now switched to left tackle, so but I thought the right side of the line was a disaster. And one of the real problems is they have to have so many guys help to protect block on that some of their best players, whether it's Murphy or Rolfe or whoever, Dalen Rogers, who really are really quite good, have to stay in and block on that right tackle spot. They are not changing that right tackle from the way it sounds. And I'm just a little stunned that you ended up that thin at that spot. It's hard to see that. Now, with both those things said, I think there's a real unfairness being by guys like even those last comments to expectations on the University of Utah. I know some people are picking them 11-1, which is crazy. But a year ago, we talked about the adjustment to the Pac-12 and how different it's going to be, and they got to get different level athletes and different level players, and that's true. I mean, I know a lot of people like to bag on the Pac-12 like it's not that good. Okay, the Mountain West Conference is not beating Oklahoma State, Wisconsin, Illinois the way that happened last weekend. It's just Nebraska. It's just not happening. You're in a different level of talent. So we all, a year ago, were like, well, it's going to be a big adjustment. And I was on the field for almost every game last year, and the Utah was not as big as the other team. And they just were not as big and not as fast. And you could see it in special teams. Ferg and I were talking about this yesterday, as well as some other things. Somehow we got 1 year away, and we decided, well, they'll be fine. I actually think that's really, really unfair to Kyle and the whole University of Utah program. Because what's 1 year going to do? You've recruited for, what, a year and a half as a Pac-12 school now? Those kids aren't ready. In many ways, this might be the year where you're going to have the most struggle. You're bridging the gap to the Pac-12 guys. You don't have the new guys. Travis Wilson's one of the new guys, but most of them aren't ready to play. So you're still playing Mountain West, high-level Mountain West quality players against Pac-12 week in and week out, while they now know you a little bit. And teams now have enough film to go look at it. I mean, Devontae Christopher, Reggie Dunn, and Drez Anderson, we love those kids and thought they're going to be great. They are really pedestrian for Pac-12 wide receivers. I mean, I really think if you go grab the Phil Steele, and maybe I'll do this tomorrow, if you go grab the Phil Steele's book, he does, I'll do this for you tomorrow because I'm now curious about it. Phil Steele does a ranking of where every player in the conference ranks at their position. And I'm not sure that Utah has many guys that are ranked in the top 6 at their position. In other words, on the above average level at their position. There's just no way they can yet. So, I mean, obviously Starr is, but I don't have a lot of other guys after that. You know, you probably know the team. This is, again, you guys know the team better than I do at this point. But just looking at the conference, watching on television, so I feel like a lot of the expectations of them are really, really, really unfair. BYU, I don't have a lot of comment. Everything I'm hearing is just that this defense is totally different and that they can do things they've never been able to do before. I still think the fundamental watching them, they're a bend but don't break, but now they seem to be able to get up on you when they don't want to break in a way that they've never had before. And I don't think we'll learn anything this weekend about that. Greg Wrubell has tweeted out 1 million times, turnovers will dictate this weekend. Bunch of NFL stuff, but I'll wait for another day because we're 20 minutes. The only question is, If you carried one quarterback on your roster, you would automatically lose every time he got hurt. Evidently, the same is true with a long snapper. Which begs the question, how do you really only have one guy on your entire roster who can long snap? Just a thought. Have a good one.